Will the X-Men in Avengers Doomsday be the same variants of X-Men that we saw in the original X-Men trilogy, X-Men, X2, X-Men The Last Stand, or are they new variants that are very similar? For example, the Wolverine and Deadpool and Wolverine being very similar to the variant from the Fox X-Men films. All right, really great question. So we know that the original cast from the Fox era, or the early 2000s X-Men, they are returning for Avengers Doomsday. Kevin Feige has even referred to them as the original X-Men. Now, to clarify your question for anyone who's confused, you used a great example of Hugh Jackman's Wolverine in Deadpool and Wolverine. Yes, it's Hugh Jackman. Yes, he has a very similar personality and history to the Wolverine that Jackman has played in those X-Men films, but he is just a similar variant from another universe who had a slightly different, or in some cases, a very different life than the Wolverine we know. Like in Multiverse of Madness, for example, where we saw Patrick Stewart's Professor X, but not the Professor X that we know from those X-Men films. He's just a very similar variant. So the question is, will that be the case for the X-Men that we are getting in Doomsday? Will they be the exact same X-Men that we know from those movies, or will they be very similar variants of the characters? And the answer is both. Let's start with the X-Men universe that those original X-Men came from. That is universe 10005. That was the universe number designation for those Fox era X-Men films, and it is the universe number in Deadpool and Wolverine, where we get confirmation that yes, Deadpool exists in that same 10005 universe, the same universe as the Fox X-Men. Now, something we have to remember about that universe, the 1005 Fox X-Men universe, is that when it comes to its timelines, it's messy as hell. We have seen the timeline rewritten in universe many times, such as in Days of Future Past and in Deadpool 2. Professor X has died like 3 times. We've had very different versions of Colossus. Super messy. But all of those altering different timelines occur in that same universe. Now, how does that work? Well, as I've explained before, you can have multiple flows of time, multiple timelines with, variations to how reality unfolds. You can have multiple strands of that time exist in one universe. And that is basically confirmed here on the TVA screen in Deadpool and Wolverine, where we see Deadpool's universe and how it's dying. And there are these other timelines that are attached to his universe, and as that universe retreats and dies, we also see those timelines die. And that is because all of those timelines are part of that one universe. And before the Fox X-Men films even became part of the MCU multiverse, like officially, the director of Logan, James Mangold, he had suggested that that movie, Logan, was kind of an Elseworld story of its own, and that it takes place in an alternate timeline where the X-Men films that came before are canon, but loosely canon. They're a loose history, but not like a 100% we have to abide by those previous films. That's the first step, I think, to answering your question. Universe 1005 is the Fox X-Men universe, and all of the Fox X-Men movies are part of that universe. The timeline has just been rewritten like recordings over and over again on a VHS tape, and there are variant timelines that exist in that one universe. I hope that makes sense. So that then brings us to the question, which X-Men universe are we going to see in Doomsday? Well, I think that we can reasonably assume that we will be going to the same universe that Monica Rambeau wound up in at the end of the Marvels, where we saw the return of Kelsey Grammer's Beast. Granted, he looks very different. I think we can also assume that the X-Men universe that we'll be seeing in Doomsday will also be Deadpool's universe, because of course he's going to be part of the story of Doomsday and the story of Secret Wars. And we know Deadpool's universe is universe 1005, the Fox X-Men universe. And I don't think that Doomsday is going to give us multiple X-Men universes. I think we just get one, and it's going to be that universe. And that therefore means that Monica is in that Fox X-Men universe. So to answer your question, yes, they are the same X-Men from those X-Men movies. They are from that universe, and they aren't just like variant versions from another universe. They are the original Fox X-Men. But, big asterisk, They will be slightly different, and they'll likely have a looser history that's very, very similar to the one we know. But also, there will be some differences because of all the time travel and rewriting that has happened in their universe. And that also gives Kevin Feige and the Russo brothers the creative liberty and freedom to do different things with these characters and not have to abide by this like strict, oh, well, this happened in that movie, so we have to pay attention to that and we can't retcon this or that. It can just all be explained by, oh, well, this is a slightly different timeline or time has been slightly changed. For all intents and purposes, yes, they're the same. Same actors, same characters, same general history, and they are meant to be the same X-Men from those original movies. They aren't from other universes like the new Wolverine was, or Professor X in Universe 838 from Multiverse of Madness. That's not the case with these X-Men. And I don't know if I'm gonna keep this in, but what's really annoying about that? We should have two Wolverines in the 10005 universe because Wolverine, that new Wolverine, he comes back to Deadpool's universe, 10005, the main Fox X-Men universe, and he's there with Deadpool. But Logan dies in the future, so Deadpool's universe should still have another Wolverine who's part of that X-Men team. That's a video for another day. All right. Thanks so much for the question. All right. Hey, everybody. Colton here. And this is the mailbag style show where I take your questions about Marvel, Star Wars, DC, movies and streaming in general. Whatever you want to ask, send it in at the email address askcoltonnow@gmail.com. Link in the description below. And maybe you'll see your question featured right here on the show.